You know that feeling when you're moving out of an apartment?
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst.
Right. And you're just staring at all these cardboard boxes, and you suddenly realize something completely terrifying.
That you have way too much stuff.
Well, yes, but deeper than that. You realize you don't actually own your stuff. Your stuff, like, it owns you.
Wow. Yeah, that is a really heavy realization.
It is.
Because the sheer physical and honestly mental weight of all that accumulation, it just hits you all at once when you actually have to put it in a moving truck.
Exactly. You are standing there, sweating, looking at this heavily used air fryer or like a stack of books you've already read.
Books you're probably never going to read again, let's be honest.
Never. And you're thinking, why am I carrying this? Why is this my burden?
Right.
I have to pack it. I have to lift it. I have to find a place for it in the new house. It is just exhausting.
But what if that physical weight of moving boxes is just a surface level metaphor for a much heavier weight?
Like an invisible weight.
Yeah, an entirely invisible weight that we carry every single day. What if the absolute heaviest things we drag around aren't our physical possessions at all?
Oh, interesting. What are they then?
There are deeply ingrained assumptions about what actually belongs to us.
And that brings us to the absolute core of the philosophical muddy waters we are wading into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
So our mission today is profound. We are diving into a stack of philosophical source material that completely dismantles the idea of mine.
It really takes a hammer to it.
It does. We are going to reevaluate our relationship with absolutely everything we claim ownership over.
Not just physical possessions.
Right, our physical possessions, sure, but also our time, our intellect, our status, our careers, and even our influence over other people.
Which is a big one.
Huge. We're going to explore how shifting from a psychological mindset of ownership to a mindset of entrustment might actually be the ultimate, desperately needed cure for modern exhaustion. Okay, let's unpack this.
To really get to the bottom of this, we have to look at the psychological mechanics of how we construct our identities.
Okay.
The source material points out that as humans, we naturally define ourselves by what we possess. And the transition from the physical to the metaphysical happens so smoothly we don't even notice it.
Give me an example of that.
Well, we start by saying my car or my house.
Sure, that makes total sense.
Right. But very quickly, that exact same possessive mechanism latches on to abstract concepts. It becomes my knowledge, my power, my status.
My career trajectory.
Exactly. Even my good intentions.
Right. And the argument here is that this is a trap.
Yeah.
Everything we call mine becomes this invisible extension of our ego. We bind our identity to it.
We do.
But I have to push back a little right out of the gate here.
Go for it.
Because saying my intellect or my career, I mean, it feels pretty accurate to me. I went to school. I put in the late nights. I did the work.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I claim absolute ownership over the things I've built with my own two hands?
It is a totally natural reaction to feel that way. I mean, it feels innocent and it bestows a sense of responsibility.
Right. I earned it.
But the underlying argument we were looking at introduces a vital distinction. It's a fundamental difference between absolute ownership on one hand and trust on the other.
Trust, meaning like an entrustment.
Yes. The philosophy refers to it conceptually as eminent or amana.
Let's clearly define the mechanics of those two concepts, because understanding that difference changes the entire paradigm.
Okay, so ownership, in the truest sense, implies a claim of absolute disposal.
Absolute disposal.
Yeah, it means you have the ultimate, unquestionable, original right to do whatever you want with a thing, because you are its source.
Got it. And the trust, the amana.
Trust implies a completely different psychological framework. It implies a purposeful loan.
A loan. That's a great way to put it.
It is the permission to use something, to manage it, to cultivate it, but not the absolute right to it. And the central thesis here is that when we confuse these two, when we treat a trust as if it were absolute ownership, we take on a massive cognitive load.
We get crushed by it.
We grow heavy. We toil endlessly to protect these things, but we find absolutely no peace.
That makes me think of an analogy to explain just the absurdity of how we view our own lives.
No, let's hear it.
Claiming absolute ownership over your intellect and your physical faculties is kind of like walking into a fully furnished house. The someone else built.
Right.
You sleep in the bed they made, you eat the food they stocked in the fridge, you use the electricity they wired, and then you aggressively march outside and claim you built the entire earth you are standing on.
Yes.
You're just a guest.
It is a deeply humbling realization when you strip away the ego like that.
It really is. I mean, think about it logically. Your intellect, your will, your very body.
The genetic lottery.
Exactly, the genetic lottery. The era you were born into, the opportunities that just happened to cross your path.
None of these were given upon your request.
None of them. You didn't submit a requisition form for a healthy brain before you were born.
No, you did.
You didn't decide where you were born or when. And yet, despite all of that being handed to us, we walk around acting like we have absolute sovereign authority over our faculties.
And that assumption of sovereignty is precisely the mechanism that produces modern exhaustion.
It is.
You are trying to uphold the illusion of ultimate control in a universe where you are fundamentally a recipient.
Wow.
What's fascinating here is how the consciousness of trust, of amana, completely flips the psychological dynamic without making you lazy.
See, that is where I get tripped up.
How so?
Because if I accept that I don't own my intellect, my time, or my career, doesn't that just breed total apathy?
Not at all.
If none of this is mine, why would I try hard at work? Why would I strive for excellence if I'm just a temporary manager of these faculties?
That is the exact paradox the material addresses. Treating things as an entrustment does not make a person passive. It actually makes them hyper-vigilant, but in a healthy way.
Okay, I'm listening.
Let's look at a real-world analogy. Think about the psychological difference between a company's founder and a hired CEO.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction.
A founder often believes they own the company in their soul. Their ego is entirely tied to it.
Oh, absolutely. It's their baby.
Right. So when the company faces a setback, the founder takes it as a personal attack. They work 100-hour weeks, their cortisol is constantly spiking, they micromanage.
They sound miserable.
They often burn out because the emotional weight of absolute ownership is crushing. They are constantly defending their identity.
Right, because if the company fails, they're a failure.
Exactly. Now look at a world-class hired CEO. The CEO does not own the company.
Right, they just run it.
They are entrusted with it. Do they work hard? Absolutely. Are they brilliant? Yes. But their psychological distance allows them to make incredibly sharp strategic decisions because their ego isn't on the chopping block.
That makes so much sense.
They have a mandate to simply manage the asset well. Directing the means in your hand, your time, your money, your intellect, toward a higher purpose as a trustee actually expands your capabilities.
Because you aren't freaking out all the time.
Exactly. Because you are fulfilling a duty, not dragging around the heavy burden of your own ego.
You are no longer dragging a heavy cart up a hill just to prove how strong you are.
Precisely.
There's a specific couplet from the source material that captures this mental shift perfectly.
Oh, read it.
It says, "The claim of ownership brings weight to the shoulder. He who knows the trust walks on. The burden lightens, the path opens."
It beautifully illustrates the transition from the isolated, anxious I to a harmonious relationship with reality.
Yeah.
When you see your skills and your time as a purposeful loan, you stand in a much more measured place. Your cognitive bandwidth isn't constantly eaten up by defending your territory.
Which flows perfectly into the intensely practical side of this. If the claim of ownership brings weight to the shoulder, it is no wonder everyone is walking around completely burned out right now.
We really are.
Let's bring this into the daily grind. The source material dives deep into how the modern world makes this delicate balance almost impossible to maintain.
The modern squeeze, as it's often felt.
Exactly. The modern squeeze. We live in an era defined by visibility, speed, and this relentless desire for possession.
It creates this great noise.
A massive noise. And that noise completely drowns out the quiet, subtle idea of managing a trust. We are bombarded with the message that acquiring more skills, more networking contacts, more gadgets, more responsibilities.
The side hustles.
Oh, the side hustles. We're told that's the only path forward.
And the more you claim to own, the heavier your invisible backpack becomes. The noise tells you to grab absolutely everything within reach.
But let me play devil's advocate again here,
Yeah.
because this feels completely counter to how our society operates. In today's world, we are actively taught that the more we can juggle, the stronger we are. Capacity equals success.
That is the narrative.
If I can maintain a demanding corporate career, an active social life, a perfect fitness routine, a side hustle, and post about it online, how is that not winning?
Right.
If I drop any of those balls, someone else will grab them, and I lose my competitive edge.
It is the modern definition of winning, without a doubt. But the underlying philosophy we are exploring argues it's a deeply flawed metric. It fundamentally misunderstands human psychology.
How so?
True strength, according to this framework, isn't about how much you can grab or how much you can reach. True strength is the ability to carry that which you reach.
The ability to carry it, meaning like the emotional and mental endurance to actually sustain it.
Yes, because everything you reach for but cannot truly carry eventually wears you down to the bone.
Ouch.
Let's look at the mechanics of hoarding versus managing. You might be able to grab the side hustle, the social obligations, and the extra projects.
Sure, you can put them on your calendar.
Right. But if you treat them as possessions to hoard, things you must desperately cling to so you look successful, they stop being tools for your growth.
They become weights.
They become weights that drag you under. The cognitive load of constantly defending your ownership over all those domains is what burns you out.
Right.
The capacity to acquire is absolutely not the same thing as the capacity to sustain.
That distinction right there is huge.
Yeah.
It completely reframes how we look at burnout.
It really does.
Burnout isn't just a mathematical equation of doing too many tasks. It's the psychological exhaustion of trying to own too many outcomes.
Yes, owning the outcome is the trap.
Which brings us to a pivotal question from the material, and I want to put this directly to you listening right now. Think about your life, your calendar, your specific responsibilities today, and ask yourself this.
This is a tough one.
Do the things in your hand carry you, or do you carry them?
It is a profound diagnostic question for your mental health.
Because the honest answer to that question determines your entire trajectory. If your calendar, your status, and your possessions are constantly dragging you around, dictating your peace of mind, and exhausting your spirit, you've slipped into the illusion of absolute ownership.
You're trying to be the founder of everything.
Yes. Recognizing that you are just a trustee doesn't diminish your drive. It settles you into your rightful place so you can actually breathe.
And if believing we own our time and our things is what drains us, we have to look at what happens when this illusion of ownership scales up.
Oh, this gets intense.
It does. What happens when that illusion escapes our own calendar and bleeds into how we treat other people? What happens when we possess the ability to change situations and direct others?
Here's where it gets really interesting. We are scaling up from the concept of personal capacity to the concept of power.
Capital P, power.
And the source material dives incredibly deep into this. Power is thrilling.
Yeah.
When it's acquired, whether it's a promotion at work or, becoming a parent, it's greeted with joy.
It feels good.
It does. The ability to intervene, to give direction, to mold an outcome. It excites the human ego like nothing else.
It's deeply intoxicating. But the text proposes a fascinating counterintuitive idea about the mechanics of power.
Let's hear it.
The true nature of power is revealed not at the moment it is seized. It's not even revealed in the moments it is actively used to solve a problem. The true nature of power reveals itself strictly in the moments it is not used.
That is so deeply countercultural.
Right.
We perceive power strictly through visible results. If I can step in and fix a crisis, I'm powerful. We celebrate the person who charges into the room and takes over.
The hero.
Yeah, the hero. But the underlying question here is, can you choose not to act? Even when you have the absolute means to do so? Can you hold back when you are perfectly able to intervene?
That threshold, that agonizing moment of choosing restraint when action is entirely possible, it would be, frankly, much faster, is where power transforms from a simple tool into a profound moral trial.
The trial.
Yes. The material argues that power does not make its owner visible, it makes their intention visible.
Wow.
Are you intervening to help the situation, or are you intervening to prove that you are the one in charge?
Let's ground this in a really specific modern reality. Think about a parent helping their kid with a science fair project.
Oh, a classic power struggle.
Totally. The kid is struggling to build the papier-mâché volcano. It looks terrible. It's lopsided.
There's glue everywhere.
Glue everywhere. The parent, who has the power of adult motor skills and spatial reasoning, knows exactly how to fix it. Their instinct is to grab the glue gun and take over.
Because it's faster.
Right. If they intervene, the problem gets solved faster. The volcano looks perfect, and maybe the kid gets an A.
But what is the hidden cost of that intervention?
Exactly. The cost is that the entire depth of the learning process is lost. The source material uses this evocative phrase. It says the one who constantly intervenes shortens the process but cancels the ripening.
Cancels the ripening. I love that phrasing.
By grabbing the glue gun, the parent robbed the child of the frustration, the problem solving, and the ultimate pride of having done it themselves.
That is a perfect translation of the warning here. Seeing your power over others as an entrustment, an amana, rather than as ownership, equips you with boundaries.
Right.
The fundamental rule of the entrusted hand is this: just because something can be done does not mean it should be done.
That's powerful.
When power is used without measure, it produces speed and outward perfection. But the internal depth, that ripening, is entirely canceled.
And it all stems from that same root issue. The parent grabbed the glue gun because their ego got involved. They felt they owned their child's academic reputation.
Yes.
If they viewed their role as a trustee, someone there to just guide, support, and step back, they would have let the kid fail a little.
Exactly. And this applies everywhere. Think of a manager with an employee or a senior developer with a junior coder.
Oh, code reviews.
Yeah. If the person holding the power is active at every single moment, constantly correcting, constantly directing, rewriting every line of code, they leave absolutely no oxygen in the room for the other person to grow.
They're filling every void with their own ego.
Yet, true refinement is not about filling every void. True refinement is about knowing how to leave an empty space where it is due.
That's really hard to do.
It is the wisdom of withdrawal. This requires massive internal strength.
Which is why there's another couplet in the text that nails this dynamic perfectly. It says, "When power is grasped, the color of intention is revealed. The hand that can restrain itself knows the balance of the trust."
The balance of the trust. That word balance is the key to everything we've discussed today, and it leads us logically into the final and perhaps most intimate frontier of this philosophy.
Okay, where are we going?
Because the trial of power isn't just evident in how we manage our teams or raise our kids. It eventually turns entirely inward.
Right. Having explored the illusion of ownership over things, and then the illusion of owning outcomes for other people, we have to look at the power we wield over ourselves.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the material argues that a human being holds immense, often unchecked power toward their own self.
We really do?
You hold the gavel in your own mind. You can judge yourself. You can grow incredibly harsh with yourself. You can overburden yourself with impossible expectations.
We do it all the time.
Yeah.
We are, without a doubt, our own worst tyrants. Let me give you a very real, very modern example.
Sure.
It's Sunday afternoon. You've worked a grueling 60-hour week. You finally sit down on the couch to just watch a movie and breathe.
Just for a minute.
Just for a minute. And almost immediately, that voice in the back of your head starts screaming at you. You're wasting time. You should be doing laundry. You should be working on that side hustle. You should be optimizing this Sunday.
The Sunday scaries.
We punish ourselves for simply existing, all because we think we have the absolute right of disposal over our bodies like they are machines we own.
That internal monologue of guilt is the perfect example of wielding unmeasured power against yourself.
It's awful.
But the text warns that a person who acts as a tyrant toward themselves inevitably breaks from within. It shatters your internal architecture.
You can't survive it.
You cannot sustain a war against your own limitations. This is why the philosophy argues that true maturity is the ability of a person to establish a merciful discipline toward themselves.
Merciful discipline. I love the friction in that pairing of words.
It's a great concept.
Merciful implies forgiveness and grace, but discipline implies structure and holding the line. It's not letting yourself off the hook completely and giving up, but it's not whipping yourself for taking a breath either.
Right.
It's finding the exact point of balance.
Precisely. And achieving that balance requires ignoring almost everything the modern world tells us.
Because the world wants noise.
Society violently confuses power with noise. The cultural narrative insists that whoever speaks more, whoever reacts faster, whoever pushes themselves to the absolute brink of destruction, that person is deemed powerful.
Yeah, the hustle culture.
But the ancient wisdom presented here counters that entirely. True power, especially over oneself, is fundamentally silent.
It does not hurry. It does not chase after proof to validate its existence.
It doesn't need to post its achievements online to feel real.
Exactly.
Instead, it simply guards the balance. It tests itself not through the noise it can make, but through the profound stillness it can maintain.
Stillness.
This internal stillness is what allows that isolated, anxious ego we started talking about to align with reality. It allows you to maintain a harmonious relationship with your own life rather than constantly fighting to assert dominance over it.
And it all builds to this one crucial, penetrating question. The source material states that in the end, the concept of power looks you in the eye and asks its owner this question. Are you using me for yourself or for a meaning greater than you?
The answer you give to that question determines everything.
Everything.
It is the dividing line between exhaustion and peace. Because power only elevates a human being when it is carried with this deep awareness of amana, of trust. If it is treated as a private possession to feed your ego, it will eventually crush you under its weight.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring all these complex threads together for you listening. We started by looking at the trap of the word mine.
The moving boxes.
The heavy moving boxes. We realized that treating our intellect, our time, and our capacity as private property to be fiercely defended is exactly what is driving our modern exhaustion.
And burnout.
We explored how true success isn't about hoarding a massive capacity or unchecked speed. Success is actually recognizing that everything we have is a purposeful loan.
We learned that whether we are dealing with our overcrowded daily schedules, our urge to micromanage our children's science projects, or our own toxic internal self-talk on a Sunday afternoon, treating life as an entrustment rather than a possession is what finally settles us into our rightful place.
It grants us permission to put the heavy boxes down.
It really does.
It's the ultimate shift from the crushing burden of the owner to the quiet grace of the trustee. And adopting that framework completely changes how you walk through the world.
Completely.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something that pushes this concept into entirely new territory to think about long after this deep dive ends.
Lay it on us.
If we truly don't own our intellect, our talents, or even the time we are given, what does that mean for the concept of leaving a legacy?
Oh, wow.
In modern society, we are obsessed with building a legacy, with leaving our name on buildings, on businesses, on art. But are we obsessing over legacy simply because we're terrified of admitting we were just temporary managers?
That is a deep question.
If you never truly owned your life to begin with, what exactly are you trying to leave behind? Maybe the ultimate sign of a successful life isn't building a giant monument to an owner that never really existed.
Right.
Maybe the ultimate flex is simply handing the keys back at the end of it all, knowing you managed the trust well, and leaving the estate just a little bit better than you found it.
Handing the keys back. I love that.
Think about that the next time you feel the need to prove you own the room. You're just a guest. Enjoy the house.